I can stand over this. Cora Staunton, Lee McHale, Kevin Kilban and Kieran MacDonald.
OTB AM's Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, time for us to get into OTB AM's Mount Rushmore. Next week we're doing Dublin. We've divided it in 3. We're going to have a long list for the north side, which we'll get down to 4. We're going to have a long list for the south side, which we're going to get down to 4. And then we're going to get to 4 finally. And there's going to be, I'm sure, plenty of rows because with a population the size of Dublin and all the advantages of all the money, Owen, that Dublin have, of course they're going to have more sports people, right? That's all this is.
Of course, like, I mean, the maths are in their favour, but, I mean, like, you've got to go out there and actually be great with all the money you've got and all the population you've got here. So I'm not going to be brought down into kind of a spiral of giving out about Dublin here. And anyway, it's all about Longford today.
Yeah, we're going to get to Longford in just a moment. Why won't you just indulge for a second in a little bit of Dublin bashing? That's our whole agenda here, is to try and accelerate the split of the county into 2, maybe 4 geographical areas, so that we might actually have a championship worth watching. That
would be ideal, actually. Yeah, I mean, would Fingal get beaten by Meath in the first round of the Leinster Championship?
Probably not. No,
probably not. So, like, I mean, what's the point? What is the point in any of these splitting conversations? But maybe it could give other people just a glimmer of hope if we are successful in this. This is the only reason why we did Mount Rushmore, by the way. It's a Trojan horse to accelerate the split Dublin conversation.
Somebody actually thought that had been the case on Twitter yesterday when I was kind of, making the joke. Oh no, we were splitting the county, because it's like, no, you can't split it. You haven't split any of the other counties. That's not fair. It's like, I mean, we're not.
Well, we should have. Like, I mean, we should have done Belfast alone, really, shouldn't we? But
we should have done Belfast alone, because I think it's a special case, and there's actually a really interesting story about the history of Belfast. One aberration which I missed from yesterday was the Ballymena and county boxing champion from 1977, Mr. Liam Neeson, didn't even get into the conversation for Antrim's Sporting Mount Rushmore. One of my Antrim friends was in touch afterwards to say, here, listen, come on.
Jesus.
You'd stick Liam Neeson on the mountain, because ultimately that's going to attract a big crowd, and all of a sudden you can tour the county.
Well,
it's been create some jobs.
It's been a bad week for both sides of the treaty this week. You slammed Eamon de Valera last week, and you forgot about Michael Collins yesterday.
Right, let's get into it. Longford at 9:33 a.m. on today, Thursday. We are turning our attention to the 31st of the 32 counties, and I'm delighted to say we've got Mickey Quinn as our selector for us from... this is the hard job, Mickey, I've got to tell you, because you get to put everybody forward, and then Denis Connerton gets to come along and correct you, which is, never a great position to be in. But how seriously and how difficult a selection process has this been for you?
Yeah, I kind of thought, you know what, I started last week tipping away, doing a few bits, and then the more you dive into it, the more rabbit holes you end up heading down, and starting watching clips of Paul Barden on YouTube and different Longford sports people, and then you're like, geez, you come back to your list and it's getting longer and longer. But yeah, look, I'm kind of happy enough to throw out 4 and then let Denis correct whichever he wants from there, and hope that it'll end up pleasing as many as we can.
Everybody has been entitled to bring their own criteria to this, and myself and Owen have obviously made our own selection, so we know how difficult it is. Paul Rouse came in early on and said, look, I've just decided I have to have seen them play, otherwise... I was like, that's a great idea, because that got me off the hook for having, like, the 1920s All-Ireland winning captain and the guy who scored, like, almost all of Kildare's scores. It's a ridiculous omission, I appreciate that. But look, this is your mountain today, so what were your own personal criteria?
Yeah, I went trying to look at different sports first and foremost. I thought, you know what, it'd be great to have someone from a different sport. Didn't want it to be all GAA, 4 GAA heads on Mount Rushmore for Longford. And then it's like, it's not possible, because Gaelic football is such a stronghold in the county. But then you're looking at the likes of Longford Town, you're looking at the athletic side of things as well. And then you have some of the current athletes at the moment. You have Dara Green there, who's swimming for Ireland and had qualified for the Tokyo Olympics, and that he mightn't be on it just yet, but he's definitely given a few more years, and I think he's going to be one of those he's going to be a national treasure.
That's really interesting, the fact that you have a swimmer heading to the Olympics, because I'm kind of curious, when you're growing up in Longford, does it feel like it is essentially and quintessentially GAA country?
Definitely, and that's why I think anyone that heads down a different path, almost you have to hold them in a higher esteem then as a result of that. And then when you talk about individual sports straight off the bat, I think that's more challenging. You're doing it on your own. It's a lot more tougher. Like when you see some of the regimes of what athletes and individual athletes go through with early morning swimming sessions, double sessions in the day, to see where Dara Green has got himself and at that level, it's phenomenal, really.
Yeah, no, it really is. So when you were a kid, who were your heroes?
Hero growing up, I would have went to games with my dad and uncle and would have followed Longford everywhere, down to Wexford, down everywhere, Carlow, getting in the car every morning or Sunday mornings, heading for games. And basically it was going to watch Paul Barden, Podgy Davis, these guys would have been my era going to watch as a young kid. But I remember going watching Paul Barden in different games, and it was just worth the admission fee alone to get to see him. Remember a game in Longford where he took a short kick out off a keeper in his own 21 and just ran the length of the field the whole way up, played a couple of 1-2s, and about 4 lads hanging out of him, trying to pull him to the ground, and he kicked it over the bar, and he practically got a standing ovation from both sets of fans that day. I think it was against Down or Derry, and to see someone like himself and then get an opportunity to play alongside was something that I was privileged.
So it's, you know, he could be a cornerback the way, like, taking the short game, but he actually, was he a midfielder or a half forward? What was his his nominative position?
Centre forward, but it was interesting. When you do a bit of research, you come across a few different things, and it links in with another GA head that he started his senior career with his club in goals. So, centre forward was Paul's position, and he dominated that for years with club and county.
Okay, we've got Denis Connerton with us as well. Denis, good morning to you, former Longford manager. Was Paul Barden one of your players at one stage?
I sure did, yes. I was a selector when Paul was first introduced to the county team with McCormick as manager way back in 1998. So Paul had a really long career. He's an outstanding footballer. I remember we went to the minor final he was playing in that year, and just to have a look at him before we introduced him. And it was a time that the National League would have been starting way back in October. So he was a brilliant footballer. I know Mickey was referring to the games he saw him playing, and he had one hell of a long career lasting until 2015. So it's some career, and he had some fantastic highs in that career. He's a member of the Irish International Rules football team in 2002 and 2006. Paul has won 3 senior championships, I think, from Gish, and he's also represented his club at hurling also. So he's brilliant all-round sportsman. But in Longford, you are spoiled for choice, I suppose, with somebody. It's a sports-mad county. It's a small county, but it's a sports-mad county. So you are spoiled for choice in the number of people that you can consider.
Well, let's talk a little bit about other sports before we come back to GAA, because it feels like from chatting to both of you that there might be a battle over the GAA person who ends up making it here, or one of them anyway. Let's start with perhaps your most famous son on a global level. I didn't actually realise Eddie Macken was a son of Longford. So is he first on your list, Mickey?
Yeah, I had him up there, probably before my time. But it's funny too, when Aga Khan and the Dublin Horse Show was on the last number of years, or growing up, it was almost put on the TV the whole time, and there was talk of, Jesus, Eddie Macken this and done that, and his horse Boomerang, but never have witnessed or seen him in action. But 3 Aga Khans in a row, and then getting to 2 Olympics, 92 in Barcelona and 96 in Athens, and then seeing the career. When you're on an international stage like that, it's a completely different level for a Longford sports person. So to see someone held to that high esteem and to be making it up there at the Olympics, at the winning 3 Aga Khans, it's just a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, so Denis, I guess you would have, you're the right era to remember what this was actually like.
I couldn't have missed it, and this guy is a superstar, from Connerton and Longford. Mickey mentioned there that talking about winning 3 Aga Khans, it's unreal sort of stuff to do. But he also won 4 consecutive Hickswick derbies, which was a very prestigious competition at that stage. His first horse was, the first horse he won with was named Pele, so you couldn't really lose with a horse like that. And Eddie, he got 2 individual silver medals at the World Championships, which is some achievement for anybody from this country, never mind from Longford. He has to be my number 1. He's really a box office figure in Longford, and it's something that you don't associate that much with Longford, an Irish equestrian show jumper. So as a guy like that to come from Longford, he has to be my number 1.
Is Longford's horsey country, Denis? Did this kind of come from nowhere?
Well, I wouldn't say it came from nowhere, because there were people interested in show jumping when I was growing up. There used to be shows around the place. We actually had a show in our own parish up for Klein, and there was a big interest in it. But the same interest wouldn't be in it now as what was then. But this guy really raised the profile of it, and for to be able to achieve everything that he did, going to the Olympics was big for him. To be able to get silver medals at World Championship, to be such a dominant figure of that era at a time, when he would have been coming up against the fantastic British show jumpers and Germans and right throughout the world. It was a big sport.
It's funny, I'm just reading about it here. The BBC made a documentary about his relationship with the horse Boomerang in 1982. And like Owen and Tommy were going, who is Eddie Macken? What is this? And I think that's the hard part here, Denis, is trying to convey that the Aga Khan would have been live on TV. Everybody would have watched it. This is at a time when there wasn't that much sport live on TV. There would have been maybe 3 or 4 GAA matches max a year. And all of a sudden, the whole country's out there back gardens pretending to be show jumping.
Yeah, the only thing we didn't have a horse. That's the only problem. But this guy was, he was a hero with my parents in particular. He was a fabulous sports person, and the horses he had. One of them, as I said, was called Pele, and the other one Boomerang. And of course, after that, he had horses, Schalkar and Welsh and Crone. They must have been German horses. So he had a very long career, and he also ended up being at the 2004 Olympics, he also ended up being the chef to keep. So he was, the manager of that team. So he was a really great sports person.
Okay, so we're saying there's consensus. Number 1 pick is Eddie Macken, straight up there.
Straight up there for me, anyway.
Okay, Mickey, who's your second?
Second one is famous Ray Flynn, Longford Athletics. First man to break the 4-minute mile. Someone like that, he's competed 2 Olympics and 1,500 metre and 5,000. Again, kind of when you go looking at some of these athletes and you see what they've done, and the more unique or individual the sport is, the more you hold them in high esteem, because you just understand and realise the training that they do to get themselves at that level. I think he had 89 sub 4-minute miles, and I tried running some of them over this lockdown, and never again. It's a different running. So I'm best of luck with yourself and your run at the weekend.
Did you break 4 minutes? Were you able to do it?
I broke my watch with the heart rate. That's all I know. I couldn't even tell what was going on.
Right. Look, it's always great when you actually try and do something that you think that's tough, and then you realise that there is something special and kind of weird about the runners who are able to do this and metronomically remember the number of strides, or program themselves to hit the right number of strides for a specific number of seconds for 400 metres, and then repeat that and then do it again and again. And it's like, okay, well, this is all a bit crazy. But I think this is, again, at a time when middle distance running and Irish middle distance running is at the forefront of the world. So we're talking, he's a contemporary, I think, or just comes after Eamon Coughlin, and kind of is part of that group of young Irish people who go off, compete internationally, head over to America, and just find themselves in exalted company and match the company and keep getting better and better and better. Again, Denis, this is somebody I think kind of, maybe when you were growing up, you would have been like, okay, this guy's an international superstar from down the road.
Yeah, this guy's a super guy. I think Mickey must be looking at my notes, because he has Ray Flynn down as number 2 as well. Also, yeah. Look at it. When you look at how difficult it is, if you go back into pre-season training with GA footballers and you look at them running a 1K and you see them, some of them over 4 minutes, and you're saying to yourself, geez, will these guys ever finish? Because I get pneumonia by the time they finish. And you look at this guy being able to run 89 sub-4-minute miles in his career. Pardon? It's incredible.
That could be for a different Mount Rushmore, that list.
Yeah, but it's incredible for him to be able to do that. It came at a time when the great Eamon Coughlin was there. Maybe if they had been at different periods, that Ray would have possibly gone on to be the number 1 in that sport. But he ran with Marcus O'Sullivan, Frank O'Mara, and Eamon Coughlin, and the 4 of them ran a 1 mile relay in a charity fundraiser in Dublin and a set of world records. So it tells you the amount of talent that we had in our country at that period. But this guy he's a phenomenal runner. I remember the one Maker Mile was one of the huge events. I used to love looking at it on TV. And in 1981, Ray finished second in that to the great Eamon, who was considered the king of the boards, and he was only 0.8 of a second behind him. So he is some athlete, and the amount of time and the amount of effort that he would have put into that, going over to East Tennessee State University, when he got a scholarship there for it, the amount of work he would have put into his career would have been phenomenal.
I was just looking at the population of Longford. It's 40,000, and we already have 2 people who have managed to make it in very different sports. But if you make it in running, literally everybody in the world can run. There's no barriers, and we've seen some of the poorest countries in the world have produced the fastest runners. So it's an incredible achievement from somebody. Is there a long tradition of athletics in Longford? Is there one club that maybe produced a bunch of people or had a great coach along the way? Do either of you have any kind of concept of how somebody can catapult themselves from a small town in Ireland all the way to the Wanamaker Mile?
Yeah, one of the things that Ray Flynn would have mentioned is that kind of competing against the best, and in different interviews that you look back on, that he mentioned that Irish athletes heading to America to train with the best and compete against the best was something that he recommended was what all Irish athletes should be doing to test themselves and put themselves out there. But there's certain people there that have done serious work. There's a new Longford Athletics centre that's going to be built in the next number of years, so fingers crossed that'll even bring more. But there's great work been done by the likes of Enda and John Fitzpatrick. Enda Fitzpatrick was head of athletics in DCU for a number of years, and he would have been a great athlete himself. But we're looking at someone new at the moment, 17-year-old Cian McPhillips won. I think he set the Irish under-20 record for an indoor 1500 metre this year.
Right.
In 3 minutes 44 seconds, and he won a competition in America as well. So, he's following directly in Ray Flynn's footsteps, and heading down that line. And another guy that he was supposed to compete in, I think it was the under-20 World Championships in Kenya, only for the way things turned out this season as well.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of work going on, and you can kind of see that there's a legacy of having somebody who is a superstar from the late 70s, early 80s, I suspect, is the time we're talking about here. Okay, so I think that's guaranteed. Is there anybody non-GA left that we need to talk about? Do either of you have anybody who's non-GA that we need to get into in the last 10 minutes here?
Yeah, well, I'd be looking at a guy, I haven't got him in my top 4, but there's a guy called Willie Browne, and it's only when I started doing any research that I came across this guy. And he's from the Battery Road in Longford. He was a fantastic soccer player, and he earned 3 full caps for the Irish Republic of Ireland team. Now, for him to achieve this as an amateur is a fantastic achievement, and he ended up playing against the great Bobby Charlton, Bobby Moore, and Jimmy Greaves in an Irish international back in 1974, I think it was. So he was a brilliant footballer, this guy. So he played with Bohemians. He won a Leinster College's medal, I think it was, or played the Leinster College Championship with males back in 1954. I think there was 4 brothers in it. and he ended up playing in the Irish Universities Championship with them in the Collingwood Cup in the 50s, and with two of his other brothers, they were the backbone of that team. This guy was a fabulous sports person, a lawn tennis player. He was meant to be very good at hockey, meant to be very good at golf. You know, he was an all-round sports person.
We know the type. They're always sickening. They're good at anything they pick up.
So, you know, he won 16 into amateur international appearances. He was one guy that I just came across that I hadn't been aware of. I just thought he was definitely very worthy of a mention, you know, because he was a super player.
Okay.
Really super player.
All right, so we have two definites. Eddie Macken and Ray Flynn are definite. Now we get down to the GAA nominees at this point, I think. Mickey, you mentioned Dara Green, but I think probably because it's early in his career, it's too early to consider him as a contender just yet. So talk to me about Desi Barry. Why is he under consideration here?
Desi Barry, yeah, growing up, wouldn't have seen him play, but you hear the stories. And one of the stories that, looking back on things, was that Paul Barden, when he first started off his career in goals, he had played 4 goals in goals with his club and kept 4 clean sheets. And in his 5th game, he came up against Desi Barry, and Desi put 4 goals past him. So it was an introduction for Paul, but it just funny to see the transition from one player starting and one player finishing up around that time. But Desi has 6 county titles and got man of the match in 3 of those, 81, 82, 83, I think it was, or something along those lines. And he's just one of those players that has a name. He's a postman in Longford, Longford through and through, played for Longford Town. And just, I think he has a 16-year career with Longford senior footballers, along with juggling a bit of soccer and everything else on the side.
Denis, tell us about Desi Barry, will you?
Desi, yeah, Desi started out very young with football. I think it was a 1979 county final which I played in myself, and Desi was a sub in that team. He had once again, just like Paul Barden, he had a very long career, and he played from 1982 to 2000. He was nominated on 3 occasions for an All-Star, and he eventually got a replacement in 1988. He's won 6 senior football championships with Longford. This guy is, he played for Longford Town. He was a left back for Longford Town. He played, Zach Hackett, I think, managed him at a stage. You know, that Zach Hackett would be a legend of Longford soccer. And he achieved so much in the game. And the longevity and the manner in which he played. You know, he scored 2-2 in an interprovincial, in a Railway Cup. You know, he won a Railway Cup medal in an interprovincial final against Ulster. They only got 2-9, and he scored 2-2 of it. But he was just one of those players that you couldn't take your eye off for a second. He was brilliant. He was explosive. He was courageous. He was everything that you would want a Gaelic footballer to be, and he had that. He had that ability to win a match on his own. And he won 3 consecutive Man of the Match awards in county finals from about 1989 to 91. You know, so this is he has been picked in the team of the millennium. So he is considered to be possibly the greatest footballer. There's a lot of them we didn't see, but in my era, in my time, he is the greatest footballer that I would have come across.
Okay, well that's quite high praise. And Mickey, it's interesting that when we've been doing this over the last 3 or 4 months, one thing that has cropped up in counties that are 2nd division or 3rd division or sometimes 4th division persistently over that period of time, and going all the way back, is that we can judge a player's greatness by how well they played in Railway Cups and how often they were in Railway Cups, and that's been a kind of deciding argument in some people's heads. I wonder, as a current player who doesn't really get the opportunity to play in a Railway Cup match that is taken seriously by the organisation, by the media, and I wonder how seriously the players take it in the end. But is that something that's missing in a way for us to be able to explain, well, these players could play in any county at any stage, it's just the accident of their birth dictates that they're playing for teams who are in Division 3 and Division 4? Yeah,
it's an opportunity to kind of compete and see where you're at. I think it's a bit similar to what we've mentioned about with Ray Flynn, that when you're up against the best and training with the best, that you have that opportunity to see where you're at and also better yourself and maybe come back and better the guys that you're training with your club or county then. I probably felt myself with the international rules and bits and pieces like that, and even I think I was on 3 Railway Cup teams. That when you're playing alongside these guys, you get better as a player. You get a better understanding, that you know what, there mightn't be as big a gap as you think there is, but you can get to prove yourself. And I think when you look back with what Denis is after saying there with Desi Barry, that was definitely an opportunity, and it shows that the Railway Cup, it was such a pristine competition back in the day that it's a shame to see it now that it doesn't have a place in the calendar.
Yeah, or even a standing in the calendar when they do put it on. That it's kind of like, and I don't know, maybe there's too many games, but it would be nice to be able to have a methodology of saying, well, this player X could actually easily hold their own in the Dublin team or the Kerry team or Tyrone team or whatever, even though they're from Antrim or wherever. Denis, one thing I did want to talk to you about Longford GAA and kind of the story of it over the last 30 years. There's been occasional teams that have come through where there's been a good minor team or a good under-21 team, and that backbone's a senior team for a couple of years, and they make a bit of a surge. But it's obviously just been very difficult to get a critical mass of players who are available for all the training sessions and all the ball work sessions and all the skill sessions that you need to continuously build and build and build to a point where you can say, right, this is our level now.
Yeah, it's a difficulty, not just in Longford, it's a difficulty in many counties, and it takes a special type of player to commit to long-term to a campaign in Longford, particularly when you look at our geographical location. We are in Leinster, we're in the province where the greatest team of all time resides, and where it looms large over everybody else in Dublin. So it's a very great difficulty for us. You know, if we could look across where I reside here, I live in Leinster, right on the border between Longford and Roscommon. If I was waking up on a after a draw in the Connacht Championship and a draw in the Leinster Championship, I know I'd be an awful lot happier if I was living in Roscommon, where you can get a lucky enough draw that might get you through to a Connacht final. But definitely you're going to come across Dublin at some stage, and they are very, very big, and they're a fantastic team. So they just get lads to commit to Longford for long term is difficult. Plus the fact that club football in Longford is very, very competitive, and there's a lot of emphasis on it. And some people might just look at us and say, "Why are you going into a county team? What are you going to achieve? You're not going to win the All-Ireland. You're not going to win Leinster. So what are you going in there for?" So that's why the league has become such an important. It's so important to teams like Longford, like Carlow, like all of these other teams around us, like Leitrim. The league is huge for those teams, and it's to get something more like that, you know, a competition more like the league, where Longford have an opportunity to win something, have an opportunity to achieve something is so important for them, and where they're getting games on a regular basis. We all need elite, you know, all these elite athletes like Mickey and all the other great footballers that play for Longford. Darren Gallagher's outstanding at the moment as well. All those elite athletes need an elite sport where they can show how good they really are, and they need that opportunity. And Longford provides that for them at the moment. But they also need an opportunity to win something. And I find that's very difficult for these players, and the only place they can do that at the moment is in the league.
Yeah, and look, maybe that's why a proper tiered competition might actually work. But look, this is Mount Rushmore rather than a fixtures and a hierarchy of teams debate. I would have assumed, in ignorance coming to this, that the first name on everybody's Longford Mount Rushmore was going to be Eugene McGee, given that he masterminded the epic, literally the most epic finale to any Irish sports event ever by stopping the greatest Kerry team that there ever was from winning 5 in a row. And it wasn't a fluke, it was like by building a team over a period of time. And so his imprints they're actually on Dublin football in a way, where Kevin Heffernan had to butt up against him quite a lot at club level when he was in charge of UCD, and Heffo would have been with Vincent's, and then at intercounty level where he kind of annoyed Heffo enough to get under his skin, and they had kind of constant running battles on the sideline. And this, I think, is when he was probably in his 20s. So he goes on and wins an All-Ireland with that and becomes kind of the godfather of modern football as a brilliant columnist in the Irish Independent. Also, you know, fingers on the pulse in Longford as the owner of the newspaper. So I completely just assumed, Mickey, that he would have been the first name on, but he's in danger of being left off here, is he?
Yeah, I had him on my 4, and then I changed and took him off. He was number 5, creeping onto the back of the mountain as well. So yeah, I probably, when you look back, the name, like, honourable mention for him. He 1980, 81 and 82 with an Offaly team, and then an All-Ireland with Offaly. And I suppose that was I think the crux for me, that was with Offaly, not Longford. So I think that was the telltale to kind of, or my reasoning for leaving him out, that it wasn't with Longford and it was with Offaly.
Okay, just a reminder to everybody here, it's bang on 10 o'clock. We're going to go a couple more minutes overtime in this. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. So we're in the midst of Longford's Mount Rushmore here with Mickey Quinn and Denis Connerton, the 31st of the 32 counties. We've settled, I think, on our first 3 picks. Eddie Macken, Ray Flynn, and I think Desi Barry is unanimous from both of you, which means that Denis Connerton, you get to make a pick here. You get to change one thing. Is it Eugene McGee or Paul Barden, who is the 4th person on Longford's Mount Rushmore?
Well, I'm just, Eugene McGee, I just can't overlook the achievements that this man has in his life. He's a brilliant man, a highly intelligent man, brilliant GA football manager. He's one of the great outside managers to be able to win to win an All-Ireland with a different county, to go to Offaly and win an All-Ireland with them and stop the great Kerry team going for 5 in a row in 1982 is one hell of a brilliant achievement. He also dabbled in Longford football, and I came across him in 1977 where he knocked my own Recline team out of the championship, and he started off that great Cashel team that won championships later on, and he got a great mixture of the Kenny brothers together and the Bannons and all these guys, the great Mick Casey, all those guys together. He brought them all together in 1977, so he set them on the road to their successive or subsequent victories. So, he also was involved with his home club, Cullen. He's managed Cavan. He's won so many Sigerson Cups. He's won Leinster Senior Club Football Championships. He's done it all. He's done it all in his life, and he's managed the Irish compromise team as well. So, I would not be able to leave Eugene McGee for his brilliant achievements over a long time in sport off the Mount Rushmore.
Okay, so just to reiterate, Tommy's in my ear here saying we've done 31 of these and I've managed to screw this up apparently. So Mickey, you've picked 4, right? Paul Barden was your 4th. I wasn't putting words in your mouth there when you said Eugene's on the back of it. Your 4 were Eddie Macken, Ray Flynn. You're putting Desi and Paul Barden. Both of them are on. Yeah.
Set Denis up nicely for an easy switch.
Perfect. So, Denis, who are you taking off?
Well, I think Paul's story isn't fully complete. Paul is still playing football. He's still playing with his club, and he makes a huge contribution to it. And I don't think it's complete. Whereas Eugene is, his legacy is there. His life in football is over at this stage, and I would be including Eugene McGee in my 4.
Well, it's your choice and it's your call. You get to do it. That was the whole point of having somebody on to make a last-minute change. So it's Eddie Macken, Ray Flynn, Desi Barry, and Eugene McGee. I think that's a pretty good mountain, folks.
Yeah, and it's bringing, it's bringing in a show jumper. It's bringing in an athlete. It's bringing in a football manager. And it's bringing in a footballer, a GA footballer as well. The only thing we didn't get in there was a Longford Town soccer player, and they'll be disappointed with that.
Did Desi Barry not have a couple of seasons with them?
Well, Desi surely did, and he got to an FAI Cup semi-final. But I think we're putting him in because of his exploits in GA.
One YouTube commenter wants to know, where's Derek Burnett, a shooter, obviously, who's been to the Olympic Games. Yeah. He finished 9th in the trap qualification, missing out and placed in the top 6. And he also competed in the 2000, 2008 and 2000. So he's at 4 Olympic Games.
I have him down on the list here. 2000, 2004, 08 and 12. He's down here. He was 6th. He was Sixth on my list.
When people wonder what happened to the nose of one of these four and there's little bullet holes in it, we can say that it was Derek Burnett taking very accurate pot shots from miles away.
Yeah.
Where's the mountain going, lads?
Has to be Cornhill.
Where is Cornhill? Tell us what is special about Cornhill. Obviously, it's a hill, but
it's the highest point in Longford, North Longford, a bit away from Denis there. But I'd say get a good view of one of the faces from where he is.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can get to the top of the power station lanes where we're well able to see it from there, I was just thinking that would be an iconic building for it at the moment because we're not generating much electricity from it.
Lads, it's been great. Thanks a million. I know it's not easy. You put your neck on the block and it's there to be shot at, but hopefully, metaphorically, not literally in this case. So my thanks to Denis and to Mickey Quinn for giving us the Mount Rushmore of County Longford. Eddie Macken, Ray Flynn, Desi Barry and Eugene McGee. Thanks, lads.
OTB AM's Mount Rushmore.
Right, there is just one to go, and that'll be Dublin next week. And there's just one day to go before our BMW Run and Ride for Pieta. If you want to get involved in that, you can search BMW Run and Ride. It's not too late to go and partake in it. And this time tomorrow, I'll be dead.